Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 92, featuring Charles Ledbetter, a founding member of Hexidized, also known as Hexidized, and an XR spatial computing and Web3 consultant with a lot of experience in the space and building and working on the blockchain. Welcome, Hexidized. I'm glad to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Yo, it is a dream to be here. I've been a huge fan of your show for the past few years, and yeah, this is just incredible. I'm really excited to be here today.
Appreciate you, Charles. And yeah, you have been one of the OGs, tuning in the chat and chiming in on a lot of the conversations around AR and VR and a lot of the awesome kind of bleeding edge technology that we like to look at. And it's really exciting to have you here and to be able to kind of pick your brains about what you're working on. And I know you have a lot of experience in the space, especially kind of integrating AR with events and really like real world applications, which I think is really important, but also kind of looking at the innovative ways that blockchain is actually being incorporated into XR. So looking forward to kind of chatting about that today. So thank you everyone who's joining us. My name's David Krome. I'm the host of Web3 Warriors. I go by Krome in the Metaverse. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about XR and how extended reality, the Metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality is impacting the blockchain and how the blockchain is impacting that technology. There's been a lot of hype this week about the Apple Vision Pro coming out, kind of their own take on the VR, AR conversation and a lot of interesting things they're working on. But specifically in the blockchain realm, we've been looking at a lot of different kind of use cases when looking at XR. I think there's 4 kind of key use cases that we've kind of touched on the show in the past. One being kind of the idea that owning these digital assets on the blockchain is an advantage because you have the kind of whole economy that comes out of that, right? You're able to buy and sell and trade kind of independently in a sovereign way. You're not relying on a central database, whether it's, Roblox or Fortnite or whatever the case might be. You're actually able to own your digital assets and buy and sell. And in the augmented reality space, we can see where that is actually becoming more useful because you can integrate your digital asset into a specific event or something that's happening in the real world where you want to give people the opportunity to kind of look through the AR filter and see some cool stuff, right? So that's just one piece that we've looked at. There's also the whole kind of concept of owning plots of actual land on the blockchain where, when you're in that plot of land, it's connected to like a Google Maps type of thing where, you own that plot of land in AR and you can put all kinds of different digital assets on that plot of land. So that's kind of what we've seen in the reality space. Another one we've seen is Super World that's kind of doing something like that as well, kind of on the Ethereum blockchain. But that's one other use case we've seen, and I think that's one that's going to be around to stay, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of how it evolves and if there's one that becomes the most popular kind of layer of AR or if there's a whole bunch of competing ones. So that'll be interesting to see. And then also the future of the VR world, right? And the idea of some kind of Ready Player Me future where you're basically getting paid in crypto, your value, your currency in the game, in the virtual reality world has real world value, right? And I think when I first jumped into the space and kind of saw how NFTs and the blockchain were bringing kind of real world value to the metaverse, to the digital space, definitely Ready Player Me was one of the first concepts that kind of came in my head. But it's also a very dystopian movie, right? So it's not necessarily the best case scenario, but yeah, that's another kind of use case we've looked at. And then lastly, really just looking at the opportunity to enhance events in general, right? You could have token gated experiences if you own an NFT. You could even have token gated AR experiences where if you own a certain NFT, you can actually see more visuals in the augmented reality filter than those who maybe don't own the NFT. So those are just kind of 4 broad use cases to kind of get the conversation flowing. But with that, I do want to turn it over to Charles and get his thoughts on where we're at, where we're going. What does XR really mean for the space? How is blockchain impacting XR and all those fun, wonky kind of topics to talk about? So welcome, Charles, again. Maybe before we dive into XR, I would love to hear a little bit about, what brought you to the blockchain and maybe just a bit of your background, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Yeah, man. So what brought me to the blockchain? I was, young enough to be paying attention to what some of the college kids are saying, right, in their classrooms, and old enough to have a job where I had a little bit of money to put in some things back a few years ago, um, and as a I owned my own business back when, and ran my own thing. So the idea of ownership, right, has always been very strong in me. I mean, I was the kid that at 8 years old, I was dragging a wagon with some soda cans and selling them to construction workers, right?
Nice.
Like I'm the worst employee in the world. Like people don't want me to work for them because I'm terrible at it. The ownership aspect really got to me when it came to blockchain,
Mm.
and I saw the utilities that it brought beyond just crypto and being able to flip assets, but the real world applications, which you kind of touched on, where now it's taking that ledger and just adding onto it, making it viewable, trustless, right? Where I don't have to know you, I don't have to necessarily shake your hand. Now we can make this agreement, especially as contractors and people that build these construction places,
Hmm.
having that secured assets in there, right? Where me as a property owner and you as the construction worker, you don't have to hope that I'm going to sign the check. No, it's all there. So as you complete your task as the construction worker, you know that these things are going to be, paid out on time. We don't have to wait 3-6 weeks for the banks anymore, right?
There you go.
It's all just it's all automatic. So I saw that happening, and yeah, and I went down the rabbit hole and never came back out.
We're still down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, I'm still going.
So I'm
I'm still
hearing
growing, still
transparency, accountability, as well as speed,
Yeah,
right, and innovation, and
right.
really kind of disrupting kind of what we're now seeing to be a bit of an antiquated system of moving money, right, and the power of peer-to-peer technology.
Yeah.
So what's really keeping you busy in Web3 these days? What are you kind of working on? I figure as kind of the XR spatial computing side of things, which I feel like Apple's really pushing the narrative around spatial computing. So it's going to be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. But also where that meets the Web3 space. And that's such an awesome kind of marriage, right? So what's keeping you busy as a consultant who kind of focuses on those two spaces?
I had so for me, the XR, it all for me, it's going to tie back into that blockchain, right? I can go and build on the Web 2, and that's cool, and I'm all for, like, what Niantic and Google are doing is incredible, and it goes, and I feel the same way with Apple, pushing the narrative, right? Bringing the bringing the standard, like, this is where we're going, right? So for the past few years, you've all heard me say things about AR, XR, and how it's the future, right? And I quit my job just to get into this and bring people into it. And here we are now. We're actually here, and so they're helping now. Like, even my mom called me, a couple weeks ago. She's like, "Hey, I saw a commercial for this thing that you've been talking about," and I'm like, "Well, I'm glad that it's coming across your feeds now,
There you go.
because that means if it's on your feed, then it's on everybody else's as well."
There you
So
go.
yeah, that's what's keeping me busy, is still, my focus is still to help bring people into this space, in a healthy way, right? Because as we all know,
Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of projects that say, here, I'll help you, give me X amount of money and we'll do this together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
A
yeah.
lot of snake oil
So,
out there as well, and maybe
yeah,
even worse than snake oil, where they don't even pretend to help you. They're just like, everybody else is buying this, you should buy in too. It'll get you
you
rich,
should
I
buy it
promise.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The FOMO is real,
filtering those things out. Yeah. And knowing that, being able to help people in the best way, yeah, and bringing in the real world events, like, that's the key for me. I love the real world stuff, and tying those things in together.
and blending it in with the metaverse, right? And
Yeah.
we're hanging out in our corner of the metaverse here in Voxels on-chain metaverse. If you look up Web3 Warriors in the Voxels metaverse, you can find our little corner of the digital space. And if you sign our guest book here, you'll be able to get some free wearables. So shout out to anybody in the chat who wants to check it out. We are hanging out in the Voxels metaverse right now, and we're going to be jumping over to this new one that I actually had to get set up, and that was a little bit why we were a little bit behind time here. But I had to see it, once Charles piqued my curiosity on the Nifty Islands, which apparently just launched this month, and looks really cool. So we're going to be chatting about that a bit. Hey, what's up, K-Bot? We got K-Bot in the metaverse jumping in. Appreciate you. So you're wearing Hexidized on your shirt. I know I've noticed the branding a bit around. Tell us a little bit about what is Hexidized and what is it that you're kind of envisioning with that community and that kind of focus.
So hexadize is something, it's like a verb, right? It's something that happens. And once we've talked, and because here's what really happens, right? Once somebody talks to me, once a real world event venue, whoever it is, talks to me, okay, and I'm going to start bringing you into AR XR, it's going to happen. And you just got hexadized. It's what happened. That's
Nice.
It's a verb.
I like it.
And so we've got our channels, it's a person, it's a team, but it happens. What happened? You got hexadized. Like, that's what happened.
So does it derived from the hexagons of the over platform? Is that connected? Is there a connection there?
So it originated, my brother-in-law and I, we were sitting down, and we were sitting in my garage, right, and we were talking about we wanted to really get into this. This was about right as Over the Reality had come out. We bought some of those hexagons. You're exactly right. And so we were running through different names, like blah 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 blah, and we were like Hexanaut, Hexa whatever, and Hexamaniac. And he looks at me and he goes, Hexidized. And I was like, dude, that's it. Like, boom. That is, boom, done. Like, we don't even have to go any farther. That's it right there. And so he started up just that, so we went and claimed like Hexidized Entertainment, Hexidized itself, and just started seeing which way the name could really take place, and we'll build those out as the years go on. But
that's very cool. The verb. I hadn't made that clear connection, so I appreciate it. And you got both Felons and Altered Alley in the chat saying they've been hexadized. It's a real thing,
It's
they
a real
felt
thing.
the action. It's a real action verb. So how are you feeling about kind of VR and AR adoption? Maybe you could take them both separately, as they are a little bit different. But how are you feeling about that word adoption? I don't like to use the phrase mass adoption, because I don't think that's necessarily a goal. Like, are video games even mass adopted at this point? A multi-trillion-dollar industry? Like, sure, there's enough of them, but we don't need everybody playing video games, right? So how are you feeling about VR, AR, and that whole adoption conversation?
I'm for it. Okay. And you brought up the gaming thing, right? And we don't need everybody playing the games, but I feel like the adoption goes beyond games. And so when I first got into this whole, one of my main reasons to go as far deep down the rabbit hole as I went, I do have 5 kids, okay? And they're all different ages. And I saw that education can be here, right? This can be a tool, it can be an asset. And so tying all this in, now I don't have to back when I was a kid, we had encyclopedias, we had books, right? We didn't have the Google
back
and the AI.
Yeah,
and you have a little gray in your beard, so I think you remember.
I got a boy myself as well. I got one, just one. I'm not quite at the 5, but yeah.
But you understand, and it's building their future. My future is set. Okay, I'm already living in my future, right? But theirs is being built, and so having the opportunity now to have that say, to have that voice, and to know what it's going to look like, not just because, oh, I know what the future is going to look like, but to set a foundation that I feel is healthy for my grandkids. right? Not just for my kids, but for my grandkids, my great grandkids, and knowing that what they're going to be seeing is going to be safe. We've seen that with Roblox. Now maybe they didn't have the best in the some of the best intentions in mind for our kids, right? I'm not saying that everything there's bad. That's not what I'm saying. But there were some things that weren't set up properly. And so learning from those things and being able to take that into this Web3 space where ownership is going to be a thing. And there's going to be things that, especially like with AI, that, you know, maybe we need to have a better conversation, a broader conversation, and get more parents involved in what these things are. And so the AR, VR adoption of things, I feel like it's going to be huge and go way beyond gaming, and it'll be that everyday life thing, you know, our shopping, our education, our communication. You know, we're already seeing it. You and I right now are communicating through this video thing. You're inside of a virtual world, a place that we both have gone and had multiple events, right? With multiple people. It wasn't like just you and me hanging out inside of there. We've done lots of things. We've, you know, so that's, I'm all for it.
No doubt, no doubt.
I feel like it's right around the corner.
Yeah, and so to your point, I think the gaming is not necessarily the biggest pull, and it's interesting because the actual gamers, which I do consider myself one, and there's a few of us who are embracing Web3 and are embracing the blockchain, but most are definitely still kind of in the FOMO and the FUD phase and seem to have a lot of concerns. And, you know, even the whole concept of play to earn was kind of poo-pooed on. You know, they were like, oh, that sounds horrible. I'm not trying to play video games to earn money. Like, that's not the point of playing video games at all. So fair point on the gaming, and I think that's a big hill to climb still, frankly, though there are a lot of really cool Web3 games that I'm starting to see, and even really high quality ones that are coming out. So we'll see how that adoption changes. But what do you think the best use case is, let's say AR specifically, because I'm seeing a lot of very interesting stuff in the fashion space, and we're going to be talking to Shreya, who's got a bit of experience in that, and she's actually integrating NFTs into her clothes, like she's a clothing designer as well. But when looking at kind of fitting, right, and I think I saw you had shared something from, I think it's Visions, like the store for glasses, right, for eyeglasses, where they now allow people to basically do virtual try-ons, which is essentially using augmented reality, right? So do you think that fashion is kind of one of those more practical use cases that's kind of leading the way?
Oh, 100%. If anybody's really been paying attention over the past couple of years, there's been lots of lens creators, especially on Snapchat, that have started making, you know, virtual try-ons. Charlene Nichols, who founded Optical Near Me, she's been doing the virtual try-ons for eyeglasses for the last few years, you know, and so these are not necessarily new concepts, but it goes back to like what you're saying, that the adoption side is really coming around. The groundwork has been laid enough where now it's going to be new to several millions of people, but it's here and it works. There's enough people that put in the failures to make it where it doesn't, you know, now everybody else can use it without
they're actually ready for prime time, right? You can actually show like videos of them doing the virtual try on Twitter without it looking janky and not really matching up on their shirt or whatever the case might be. You have your
foot down with the shoe, like, you know, 2 feet away.
Right. Now it's ready for prime time. I love it.
Apple Vision Pro.
And then looking at VR, right? Because I personally, on one hand, I just not a big fan of the fact that Meta is kind of like really cornering the market in VR and just making, like, you know, the lowest common denominator, and I just don't trust them. So anyway, I digress. But when looking at the VR conversation, like, what do you think is the biggest hurdle for that? Because I think AR, you know, whether it's virtual try-ons, whether it's really cool AR activations at live events that, like, you can see through your phone, I get the sticky use case for AR for sure. But VR, I do feel like, is a much kind of bigger lift, and they've been tinkering with it now for what, like 10, 15 years? Like, I don't even know how long these VR headsets have kind of been out and available, but I know I don't know when the first Meta came out that was really kind of popular, the first Meta Quest, but it's been at least 5 years now, right? I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, so, and you're right. It's been several years, that the Oculus, right, really, came out. And I don't know, they've cornered the market, okay, but you've got so many other headsets. You've got Vive, you've got, HC. There's so many other headsets out there that are options, right? And it goes the same with the AR glasses. AR glasses are not new, okay. There are some that have been around since, for the Google Glass.
Right. That was an unfortunate failure, way ahead of its time, maybe.
But it's because of those. It's because of those moments that we're able to do what we do now. And I'm with you. Okay. I don't necessarily trust the big brands I trust them to do what they have always done. Okay, I trust them to do what they their reputation. I trust their reputation to do just that. Okay, and I don't have to go too much deeper. You can look into the reputation yourself, right?
Yeah. No, it's on the data question, right? And I've been. This is a recurring theme of the show, and I'm unapologetic because I think that there's those who just have given up on the data kind of conversation and just said, they're just, all these apps are going to have full access to all of our data, and for better or worse, just let it be. But on the flip side, we are seeing more and more Web3 entities saying, you own your data, you should have data sovereignty, you should have line of sight to how your data is being used and whether or not you approve of the usage of that data. And I do think that's a continuing trend, and so I'm going to continue pushing that into existence. And I think that Web3 is about data sovereignty, right? Because it makes it possible. Until now, we just the data's there, it's in the background, it's murky, but we don't have line of sight to it, and we just kind of check the box and let all the apps have access to it. So I've heard Apple I think that Apple did take a bit of an initiative in this way where they let people opt in or out of certain apps having full access. And I know Facebook, I think, even took them to court over this because they hated the idea. So, and I think that Apple, to their credit, although of course far from perfect, all kinds of things you could criticize, I'm sure, about Apple. But I'm more interested in their headset strictly because of the way that they've framed their conversation around data and the idea that I'm not as concerned that my biometric data is just being sold to the highest bidder and, whatever the case might be with Meta. Right. So how are you feeling about the Apple Vision Pro? And do you think that data conversation is going to start to actually matter to consumers, essentially?
Yes, so much so. I love Apple's marketing. Okay, they as far as a marketer's standpoint, point of view, and letting people know they are top. Okay, they before they released the Apple Vision Pro, they started releasing videos on how to use it. Okay, so people that were planning on going to pick one up, before they actually went to the store and put it on, they probably watched that video 3 or 4 times. Okay, so when they did get to the point of putting it on for the first time, some of the memories were already in there. Okay, they didn't have the muscle memory parts, but they had enough information so that as they were being walked through it, they didn't skip the steps, they still went through it, but so they had a clear understanding where HoloLens, all these other AR glasses that they come out, well, it's here's these glasses, now go figure out how to use it. So Apple has done an amazing job of educating their users, right, on how to use these things, and which I think is key for anything. Even with the Quest, they didn't have the same education videos that Apple has done to prepare the users for their products. So as a marketing standpoint, love Apple. I think they're educating the entire globe on what we're doing and they're really bringing that to the forefront, right? As far as their product, I haven't used it, but I do believe it's going to stand up with any Apple product, right? I mean, I personally own an Android, but that's me. I like my Android interface.
The
Okay.
customizability. That's the one thing Android has, I think. They're not.
Yeah. I can do what I want to with it. And when it comes back to the data thing, like you were talking about, I know what I do and don't have access to on my Android, right? I can, if you really understand how to develop, right? If you really understand how to control your stuff. Okay, which most people that own an Android probably aren't using it to its fullest.
No.
They're not. Okay, but you can have that true user control over your phone. Where Apple, you're in their system. Okay, which is good. And if you don't know how to control, it goes kind of like a crypto wallet. If you really don't know how to control your crypto wallet, then maybe that that Coinbase wallet isn't a bad idea. Right?
No doubt.
Maybe having somebody where there is a fail safe to it isn't a terrible idea to begin with as you learn how to control yourself, right? And I feel like that's how Apple is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a kind of favorite VR headset when it comes to that conversation? Are you a fan of the Meta Quest, or what's your kind of go-to headset right now?
So all of them.
Yeah.
I really feel like they all stand like it for the majority of people. They're all going to be they're going to work for exactly what you want to use it for today, right? Most people are probably into it to watch their movies, okay, because that's the big talk. Like, look, I can watch my movies. There's some games you can play on there and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Beat Saber, that's my favorite.
Most of the hardware that's out right now is really still for developers. It's really in the developer space. Even the Apple Vision Pro, it's really geared towards people to work with, for surgeons to start using in the hospitals, for mechanics and engineers to start using inside of their respective fields and communicating. Okay, they're still there. The everyday user, what are you actually using it for in your house, right? Like what's the real purpose outside of entertainment? Okay.
Right.
And so as far as like a preferred, right now they're all going to do what you need them to do in your everyday life. It's just one have a little bit better graphics. I mean, the screen's 2 centimeters from your face. How much better of a graphic? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think portability is a big part too, though, right? And I think that's where Apple, although it is portable, I think their battery pack, instead of being on the back of your head, it's kind of in your pocket, right? And so it's a little bit more cords and stuff. Which, I mean, as long as the video and the quality is that much better, I can see it's not that big of a deal. And how much do you think that eye tracking is going to be a big trend? And do you think that other VR headsets are actually going to be able to follow suit with what Vision Pro's done? Because I know some have eye tracking, but the extent of eye tracking and the use of the fingers and all that kind of real tangible, do you see that as other kind of VR headsets adopting that as Vision Pro kind of popularizes it?
Of course. Eye tracking is going to be super important. I mean, in so many different fields, because again, we're putting it on here, and so as you look around, you want to look around like it just the same as you would in your normal life. Like the more we can make it frictionless, right? Okay. Now, and there's limits to it. Okay. So do I want the screen to move every time I move my eyes? Not necessarily, but I want it to know that I'm looking at that thing.
Right.
Okay. So I don't necessarily want to scroll with my eyes, but I do want the screen to recognize where I'm looking. And so I think that's super important. One of the things I've heard about the AVP is, so they've got the pinch feature, right? So you pinch, you grab and stuff like that, but you're not grabbing whatever it is. Okay. And the want to, the desire, the true natural muscle memory that we have is to grab whatever it is and move it. So that is something that a lot of people have been saying that they might have to get used to, is the pinch feature.
Right,
You know, like
right.
it's just here. It's not.
And
You're
it
not
doesn't even
actually
matter where it is. I was watching Marcus
Yeah.
Hughes talking. It's just like everyone thinks that they have to put their hands in front of them, but they literally can do it anywhere.
No,
Just
you can
tracks
do
your
it
hands no
anywhere.
matter where they are. Yeah,
Yep.
it's pretty
And
fascinating. I like it. The price point's a little steep, especially in Canadian dollars. It's gonna be like an extra 30% on there, but yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm very interested, and yeah,
it's only 1.5 ETH, man. I mean, 1 ETH is 1 ETH,
That's
right?
it, right? That's nothing. 1.5 ETH. It's all good.
It's not even a full Bitcoin. What are you talking about?
Right. Amazing. Shout out to everybody hanging out in the metaverse. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you sign the guest book. But it's all good. So looking at the blockchain, I listed off a few use cases off the top, right? But in your mind, what do you think is the real advantage of blockchain in the XR space? How is blockchain kind of adding to it? Because as we see, of course, Apple, Meta, a lot of these VR leaders are not really that interested in the blockchain conversation, at least not openly at this time. So how do you think that blockchain improves the XR experience, and what are you seeing as kind of the most interesting use cases?
So you brought up at the very beginning, right, about the added experience, right? Using like what we call an NFT, right? Or maybe you buy a ticket, okay, to an event, okay, and you want that added experience, okay? So we can use the blockchain to add that, right? You can, when it comes to shopping, right? Virtual try-ons are a huge thing. A lot of stores. So I've been talking to some places that their stores, right, are tired of their physical property being stolen. And that's, you go into the mall and you hang out there long enough, you're going to see somebody run in a door, scoop up a whole rack of shirts and run right out. And they're not doing it.
Twitter's full of videos like that. I'm like, that stuff does not happen here. I swear it doesn't happen over here. That sounds wild, man.
And I'm in the DFW area, okay? Yeah. And as much as I hate to admit that, it might be a problem here, is a problem, okay? It just is. You get, and it's not necessarily happening in the low-end stores. No, like they're going in. Some of these T-shirts are $200 to $500 T-shirts. You're talking, so having those items become virtual, where people can go up to the screen and try it on, and you still have the physical item in store, but now it's locked up somewhere else, okay? Or if they do want to try it on physically, like they say, I do like this outfit, and then try it on physically, well, they can. And so having those items, like you said, you mentioned a designer that's attaching their items to the blockchain, right? And so these things are going to become more common, because now if this shirt right here was attached to a specific NFT, right? So I have an NFC chip in it or something. We'll just throw that out there. Anywhere this shirt goes, if it does get stolen, right? Say it does get stolen, somebody takes it, I'll be able to track it. Not necessarily, maybe we might be able to go as far as like the GPS location, but then we're getting into the data side of things, right? It's like, how much
do we want that level of tracking?
Right. Yeah. But what I can do is I can see when it's sold. Right. I can see who purchased it. I can see where, kind of where it goes. And so because anybody's going to pay for that name brand, they're going to do it on that level, right? If they're going to spend that $500 on that T-shirt, they're going to do it to make sure that they're getting the full luxury experience. And that's where it does start to matter. We can have that kind of security in our, even down to our clothes. But at event, you buy the ticket, you get that extra experience. One of the things that, and you're up north, hockey was a big thing, right?
Yeah,
I saw some stadiums that they started selling tickets to their away games, okay, where people could come in, but there were lights on the ice that would track the players and the pucks in real time. So you could still go, you could watch it on the screen and see the lights moving on the ice to know where the players. So now if we take that off of the lights and we put it, say there's glasses that you can rent, right? You put on the glasses, okay, boom. And so now you're sitting there and you're like this, and now you're watching the players. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's taking it from that, you know, that more immersive level. Even stadiums, if they're really paying attention, can start to adapt this technology.
So away game tickets become a thing essentially, because you're able to sit there and actually experience it in an immersive way and still enjoy it, and then you're able to charge that premium on it. Wow, that's fascinating. I hadn't thought of that. That's a really cool use case. That makes sense.
Dude, it's about to get wild, and it's not gonna happen like overnight, but yeah, as the devices start to come down in their costs, where stadiums can say, hey, look, we'll buy X amount, you know, so that they can sell those 10,000 tickets, you know, because they don't necessarily need to sell out the whole stadium. But if they're getting 10,000 people in on an away game, that's still more than they were getting on any other away game, you know? Okay. So, yeah, I mean,
really cool. No, I can see that. That's so much potential revenue that's just new revenue, right? Like it's completely new, and it's probably most of the tech is already there. It's just a matter of like plugging it into the AR or VR experience and then offering that as a ticket. That's fascinating. Makes a lot of sense. I did want to ask you, Charles, about the image that you shared. We used it for the episode art where you got like a digital dinosaur floating above a stage and it says my NFT. What's happening here, and how does this kind of work as a example of a use case with AR and NFTs at a live show?
Okay, so that was at So What Music Fest back in 2022, and that was like the first major concert that I was able to really collaborate with some of the artists on. Okay, so, and I have to shout out Dispositions, because Dispositions from Texas, they go, not only do they go hard like in their, you know, just like in their music style, okay, but they go hard all the time. The members in that group are super supportive of local artists all the time. They help organize shows, and they run some of the venues. Some of the members run some of the venues in the DFW area. So huge shout out and major thanks to everything that all of those members have done. But that said, they were the first ones that we collaborated with on. We brought them into the metaverse, and we did use the over the reality platform at that time. And there was a stage. We dropped their video inside, and you know, gave away tickets to people that, you know, joined in and stuff. So it was that was my first time to really use that platform in this super immersive way, right? There was a stage, Third Plane Studios helped put it together. We had the Osu box in there. It was a whole big thing. Nice. But the dragon that you see is an NFT, right? And that for me, when I build in the metaverse, like going back, it's one thing to bring in a digital item. It's another thing, like when people can go, oh, that's who owns it. Like that's a real thing, you know? Yeah. And so that dragon is an NFT. And so we had it flying around the stages. Okay, and they had 7 stages that year, and that was the Bowling for Soup stage. So as Dispositions was playing, you know, here's this dragon. So you got this metal heavy, just like in your face band with this giant dragon flying over the stage, and yeah, so it was a lot. And
how easy is the user experience? Like someone who wants to check that out, getting it on their phone, like you just send them the link and the screen's right there, and they just look at it.
So with apps like that, you do have to have the app, right? That is the thing. So that's really the only friction is downloading the app. But once the app's downloaded, you just jump into the experience, and boom, there it is.
And that would be the Over app to look at that?
That one was on Over, yes.
Nice. No, that's really cool. And you think that's kind of a use case that we're just going to keep seeing more and more of as far as the live shows and the entertainment.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
If you don't see it from anybody else, you'll see it coming from us, because we did the same thing. And so that was 2022. We were back at So What in 2023 working with some more artists that came in. We actually got to work with Fletcher's Corny Dogs, which was, so they are the state fair corny dog of Texas. Okay, like they have been since 1942, whatever, whenever the state fair really kicked off.
Wow.
So they are a staple of Texas food, like, and they're not going anywhere, right? They're still family run, and so getting to have that corny dog, we got to do that through the whole summer.
Yeah.
That was really exciting for us inside the XR AR experiences, because I mean, it was like, as a Texan,
some state pride, right?
Like,
and you're reaching out to a popular local business. You're integrating AR.
Right.
I mean, that's exciting, man. That's awesome. That's what I'm saying. I know you're on the ground, really applying this technology in the real world, and in the process, likely onboarding some newbies, right? Which is what it's all about, educating.
Which is even more exciting, Yeah.
Exactly, showing the power of the technology. Shout out to the chat. Love to see the action in the chat. On the topic of the away games, Altered Alley was saying he's been watching the NBA on the MetaQuest, and that it's a really cool experience. So you can imagine now they already have those games showing on MetaQuest. Maybe you have some added visual opportunities for holders or something like that, where you can integrate blockchain and have it connected to your user ID on that platform, something like that. I don't know how quick MetaQuest will have something like that, but I could see a future where NFT holders for a specific basketball team maybe get to see certain things that non-holders don't get to see, just as an example of bringing that on chain. But yeah, that is cool. I could imagine a VR, all sports really, sports games in VR is probably a good wave to check out.
And you're not just looking at it on a 2D screen where you're watching the camera's view anymore.
Right.
You are the camera. So like, if you want to be sitting on the goal, like, you're on the hoop, right? You're inside the net, right?
Yeah, and go right up to the players, just float around the whole game while it's happening.
Yep, attached to a specific player. So you're that player the whole game. I mean, it's the opportunities are just endless here. I mean, I there's going to be some end, but yeah, it's
100%.
Yeah.
Another comment Grayson was saying on the topic of using the digital try-ons as a way to deter theft or avoid theft. I see the value there. What do you say? We should probably deal with the underlying issues as opposed to just digitizing everything. But I hear you, Grayson. He's a fellow Canadian perspective there. So when looking at kind of the adoption of the metaverse as a broader kind of conversation, right? How are you feeling about that? And I know I want to look at this Nifty Island and get your thoughts about that as well and show it to the audience. But how are you feeling about kind of the adoption of the metaverse? And when I look at something like Voxels, which we're hanging out in here, got a bunch of people dancing, hanging out. That's awesome. That's what it's all about. I am not necessarily expecting, full immersion and really high quality graphics right now, because then you have to give up accessibility, right? Like, that's one thing that I've already, accepted it. And that's why I love Voxels, because anyone can jump in on their phone, anyone can jump in from anywhere, and it's purely on chain. And frankly, it has a bit of a Roblox / Minecraft kind of vibe to it, where it is relatively simple to start building. Like, I have a plot there, and at first I was like, what am I going to do? But once I got started, it was so much fun, and you just like lose track of time building your, very limited kind of architecture that you're able to build. But how are you feeling about the metaverse? And, do you have a specific one that you're kind of most excited about? Or just how do you see that adoption conversation going?
I mean, I'm a metaverse fanatic. I like my IRL friends. I mean, they know that if we're gonna have a conversation, I'm gonna bring it around. It's gonna happen. So I'm all for it, and I agree. The accessibility, which is why I'm a Voxels fan, and that's one of the reasons that, like, I love K-Bot. Okay,
Shout out to K-Bot.
Right? They've been super supportive of almost anything that we've done. The whole ride, and giving us places to host events and things like that. And he's got that great place, the Avatar Convention Center,
Sure.
where I think even you were displayed. You know, you got your own stuff sitting in there too, right? He's that
I
kind
love
of
it.
community-driven guy. But it's easy, like you said. So I was able to last year, the year before, thanks to NFT Music Hall, we did a live performance there. I did a live performance with my wife. We played the guitar and sang, right?
Nice.
And even my parents, my aunts and uncles, right? Those types of people, right? That this is not their thing. Okay, they're not gonna go get the VR headset on. They're not gonna go get on the computer just to tap in. But when it was as simple, I shared the link. Right. I didn't really share it. I just told my parents, hey, you know, I'm going to be doing this thing. And you know how family is. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And so, you know, of course, they tapped it on their phone and boom, they were there. Right.
Mhm.
It was that kind of easy. So where even people that are over the age of 65 were able to jump in and not have to get in some sort of like I need help chat. They didn't have to join a Discord to
Right.
try and figure out how anything works, right? And that's a common theme, you know, like how do I do this? Well, join our Discord and talk. Well, people aren't going to do that. The less friction you have, the better. And so I'm with you. You know, that's where I see these types of metaverses, these types of platforms really being useful, is the frictionless accessibility, right?
1000%.
Yeah,
And so that would
yeah,
have been in Voxels, that performance you did.
it did. It
Yeah,
was,
cool.
yeah,
And so your
yeah.
parents were able to jump in there. That's really
Just jump
fascinating.
in, you know. They didn't have to set up a profile because
No,
they're not.
just
It's
jump in
not going to
there
happen. You know?
anonymous. It's all
Jump in
good. You
there.
just want to
Look,
see it and want to see what's
just want to
happening.
see
Yeah.
it. Yep. You know. Okay, we've heard what you're talking about. What does it look like? Okay, well that's kind of funky. All right, cool. You know, but then they talked about it for a couple of weeks. You know, so
There you go.
it was,
Exactly. It's a good
yeah,
memory,
yeah,
right? And that's like something again where you were doing your own thing at your place. Now you've got family showing up to see you
right.
perform. Plus you've got your whole Web3 friends and family out there, you know, checking it out. And the technology is bringing everyone together. And they
Yeah,
could be literally from anywhere in the world
anyway,
jumping in to
yeah.
check it out, right? That's what it's all about. And shout out to Jagar. You know, I always bring him up because he's over in East
Oh
India
yeah,
and he's building on the blockchain. He's building in the metaverse, and he's able to, you know, really make a life for himself. Frankly, building amazing 3D assets from India. You know, from his house in India. So that's what it's all about. That's the Web3 way. So I want to bring up this Nifty Island because I took the time to get it all set up and figure out what was happening. So it was. Oh, I got disconnected for inactivity. Okay. So
yep.
music festival, right?
Music Fest, yeah, just
Yeah.
Music Fest.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us about the Music Fest Island on Nifty Island, and what are we going to be looking at here?
Okay, so the first thing you're probably going to see when it pops up the avatar, you're going to see Mighty 33, okay? Because I might
Oh,
be
it's
a
not letting me.
fan. If it wasn't for Mighty 33 and everything that he really did to like push a community in the metaverse, and I personally believe he'll never get the credit that he actually deserves, but he did a lot. I don't care what anybody else says. So that said, everything in that island is an NFT. It goes back to like what you were saying with the voxels, and that's one of the things I like about Nifty Islands. Everything you build with is a digital blockchain asset, right? It is
Wow.
on the ledger. Okay, so you can't you can bring in something from Blender, but the only way to build with it is to mint it. They've got an amazing marketplace set up. It's super easy to use, like super easy to use. It's like so seamless. It's just you drop, flip, boom, bam, right? So everything you see in there is an NFT. The but
When you
there's a
say
specific,
everything, like let's just break that down. So
yeah,
the land you're walking on is one of these islands that they set you up with when you
yep,
join Nifty Islands, right?
yep.
So like looking at the piece of art, like there's this kind of astronaut art. Would that be an
That's my,
NFT
yep,
or
that's an NFT.
Wow.
That's Mighty 33's NFA, which is one of my favorite tracks. That was back in I want to say it was 2021. They dropped it for the New Year's Eve Metaverse event. Like, don't tell me you're going to the Metaverse again. And it's just so perfect for any like it's just so perfect,
Wow.
so all that is our NFTs. The only thing that's not an NFT, right, are the text, the writing. Everything else is a digital virtual blockchain asset. It's on the ledger. So if you look up at the very top, you'll see a big castle thing. And when Music Fest Island, the whole idea of Music Fest Island is to keep that core community mindset for music festivals, okay? Because any good music festival is always about a community, right? And so that's, even the IRL stuff, Rolling Loud, Lollapalooza, Burning Man, South by Southwest, they're communities of what they are. And so having that mindset stay together. So when Music Fest first started over there in Nifty Islands, it was hey, who wants to build together? And one of the first people to say, I'll do it, was that DJ Jagman from the Broadside community. And he came in. It was funny because short story, but long story, he came into the island. He's like, yeah, add me as a collaborator. I probably can't stay too long, but I'll come back and build or whatever. I was like, cool. So I gave him the collaborator rights and whatnot. I go turn around and I'm moving some like palm trees, flipping them over, doing some stuff. And, like 15, 20 minutes later, I turn around and there's this huge castle up in the sky. I was like, what is this? And so he ended up being in there for a lot longer doing some stuff. But yeah, so eventually, not too far away, we will be hosting, Music Fest events. So there'll be different stages, right? As you can probably already start to see if you look around, there'll be like a rock metal side, kind of like a pop hip hop side, an EDM side, and then hopefully other people go, ooh, I could make my own music island that's attached to this specific type of genre, right? So there'll be a hip hop island. Maybe there is an EDM island. Maybe there's a metal island, a rock island, a punk island, And so the Music Fest side is kind of like just a hub of where to go and find your specific communities, because we all like to listen to different types of music, but this could be a spot for that. So right now, one of the things we're doing, you'll see the South by Southwest participating artist wall. And there's a few people that are on there. There's still more to be added. But yeah, so you'll see different artists that are going to be joining us at South by Southwest in the XR AR side of things, right? So that's cool. That's really fun. Yeah.
And I see you got VTA TV shout out here too. Shout out to Bio.
Yes, sir.
That's the homie. And Felons was saying it's really cool that you brought Mighty 33 into the conversation, that he and the whole Token Smart team have been on the forefront of music NFTs and NFTs in general. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of the Token Smart community. Shout out to Kane Mayfield as well. He's always got his shows in there on the Fridays.
Right.
We're just one big happy Web3 family, This is really cool. I did not realize that everything in here is an NFT. Shout out to Metabot Ape. He found me in here and I don't even know how to wave, so I wasn't able to wave back. I'm just trying to figure it out. It's my first time in here, but it's a very cool metaverse. So shout out to Nifty Island. Shout out to every on-chain metaverse out there plugging away, building, despite the bear market, despite all the haters of the metaverse and all the competition out there that is non-Web3 and non-blockchain, because there is a lot of competition from the Meta and the other kind of entities out there, the centralized entities, as it were. But this is fascinating. So thank you for sharing that, Charles. This is really cool. When looking at kind of the music NFTs conversation and something like this, an event in the metaverse, how are you feeling about that conversation and kind of the growth of that? It's been very popular just in this month, I find, or in the month of January. There's so much talk about it on Twitter, and music NFTs. Are they working? The people investing in them, are they seeing them as quote unquote investments, or are they actually buying music because they support the artists and they want to support the artists, without any necessarily secondary market expectations, right? I feel like there is that conversation happening as well. What are your thoughts on music NFTs and the space?
So I think they're evolving, right? And it goes back to, that conversation we were having at the very beginning. You're going to have the people that do things first, that have the failures, that make the things that don't necessarily work. Okay, like Google Glass, right? That didn't work the way everybody wanted it to, but it's because of that now we have things like the Apple Vision Pro or the HoloLens. I mean, Microsoft's got the account for the military, right? So I mean, these things are happening. And when it comes to music NFTs, I personally minted one or three of them back in 2021, okay, just to kind of get an idea, grasp, like, what is this going to look like? If I'm going to go tell other music artists about this thing, I should at least have some knowledge of it myself, right? I shouldn't just be like, oh, you should do it because there's money. Because that's not really the why you do it. People don't drop their music on DistroKid because there's money. There's a reason for it, right? There's something there's a system in place that works. And I feel like some of those things from the 2021, 2022, 2023 music NFT era the expectations of, if you bought this to invest as like a growth thing, then then you bought it as a collector. Okay. And, more power to you. I hope that works out for you, I guess. Yeah. I personally, the music NFTs that I bought from like hip hop heads with Louis C. Rhymes, okay, I got it because I like Louis. I just like Louis. Like, he's I feel like he's just a good person. I just like the artist. It really didn't have anything to do with I didn't get it because I'm like, oh, I can flip this later. No, I got it because I just like Louis.
Exactly.
Yeah. Same thing with Kane. It's like I don't go and like follow Kane because I think Kane's going to be like some huge, like, oh, he's just going to be like the most collectible item, which he could be. Like, I'm not saying it because he's got his own little cult thing going on, which is cool. But I like Kane. Right. And I like his work. I like his art. I like what he does. So if I have anything of that side, it's not because I'm going to flip it. It's because I like the artist personally. I didn't buy CDs back in the day because, oh, cool, I'm going to buy this CD. And then, maybe my friends will think it's valuable and they'll buy it from me later. No, I bought it. I had 3 Creed albums of the same album because I wore them out, not because they were, you know what I mean? Like, so
I dig it. Yeah. When I look at the music space, it's the same thing. Like, I never have bought a music NFT with anything else in mind but supporting that musician. And when looking at the art space, I think that there's a lot of value in collecting art for that same reason as well, although I realize the art industry and the art space is always going to have a little bit more of this kind of secondary market curiosity, and the idea that, an artist has a little bit more, investment side of it, right? Like, investing in art is a very old kind of investment, and it's always been a way for people to kind of invest money and potentially increase their revenue. But you also generally don't buy art that you think is shitty, right? Like, you're going to buy art that you love, and then if it happens to go up in value 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, then maybe you'll flip it, maybe you'll sell it. Shout out, we got a couple people joining me around the fire here in Nifty Island. You got your Slurpee thing there. Altered Alley was shouting it out. Alan Walker Slurpee, I guess. We're a big fan of the Slurpees out here. Oh, it just changed. It changed into something else.
You can, so if you burn a bloom, you can control whatever's inside the fire. So but I do have to say, so those Slurpees, right? So going back to that real world, real stuff kind of thing that happened. So 7-Eleven, Alan Walker, right, back in 2022 again, right? Mm-hmm. We collaborate. He's an amazing, like, he's an on brand type of person. Okay. So, and he does things with the real brand, not the, like, he's done stuff with Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Slurpee. Okay. Right. So maybe he designed some of those things that you see in your everyday life. Right. So that said, he was able to drop, we did, I want to say it was like 50 each different colored cup, the Slurpee cups. Okay. As NFTs, they're a full 3D asset. Right. And so back in 2022 on 7/11, July 11th, which is Slurpee, we call it 7/11 as Slurpee Day.
Slurpee Day,
Every
yeah.
year,
Yeah.
yeah, every year they give away free Slurpees. And so he created this the 7/11 Slurpee experience. And we had people go out to the 7/11s. Okay. And if you opened up the experience, right, that AR experience, okay, and you shared it out or you collected the POAP, okay, then you would get a free Slurpee NFT.
Oh, nice.
And right, so that was kind of that, that's
And do you
doing things
need
like
like brand
that.
approval for something like that? Like Slurpee's, like 7-Eleven was fully on board and just.
So that you can talk to Alan Walker about how he got up. Again,
Yeah.
this is the guy that, again, Dr. Pepper, Slurpee, 7-Eleven. He does stuff for like all of the college sports teams. So yeah, I mean, that is his realm. Okay, he does the bet. He's been doing on brand stuff. He was in the Pepsi Cola Wars. Okay, he designed the Christmas cup, the Christmas can for
Oh, wow.
Pepsi.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So like when it comes to getting the rights to the brands, yeah.
Wait, Alan
So
Walker's promoting us? No problem. Yeah, you're good. They just let him go, eh? Yeah, I could see that.
so
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate
maybe
you.
he did have that deal. Maybe that was something that they were testing,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it was like they were putting their feelers out to see how this is, and which brands do that quite often. They'll do something we saw Nike do it with RTF, whatever I call them artifact, but where they have their digital presence, but it's not their digital, so they have that
Right.
buffer so that if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then if it does work out, great. But
didn't
no
they
harm, no
eventually
foul.
just straight buy them though? Like, aren't they an arm of Nike at this point? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
but still kind of arm's length. So if they have to get folded, no big deal.
right.
Yeah.
So
No,
don't be
I dig it.
surprised you started to see, because he did it again in 2023. He didn't give away the NFTs, but he did make another branded experience in augmented reality specific for. Yeah, so I don't be surprised you don't see things like this continue on.
Very cool. Well, that's amazing, man. You are a body of knowledge. I feel like we could talk XR all day. This Nifty Island is super cool. I'm definitely gonna get a little bit more comfortable with it. But yeah, I love it, and I love the idea that you can build out. And once you sign up, they actually give you your own island to kind of build on. So it does have a bit of that Minecraft kind of vibe to it as well. Do you have any thoughts on Sandbox? I'm walking around in here and I'm thinking it's kind of sandboxy as far as the vibe. I mean, that or Decentraland would probably be the closest comparisons. What are your thoughts on Sandbox though? Decentraland is cool. They're on chain, they're doing it, and it's wide open, available. People are building on it. But Sandbox, it's still a little bit of a gray area, right? And do you have any thoughts on that at all? Just curious.
So I have friends in the Sandbox, right? Just I have friends everywhere, right? So but I think when it comes to bringing in brands, right? Sandbox has probably led the way. Okay. I'm not sure that I agree with all of the ethics on any big major platform, kind of like I don't really agree with all the ethics on Decentraland or Over the Reality or any of these ones that like are big. Okay. But they have done a decent enough job to where they keep it moving, right? So and I feel like as far as like the music scene is going, they've definitely been supportive to the major players in the music business. Okay, we saw what they did with Universal. They just did something with a metal group or a metal label, right? So they're really bringing in different organizations and helping bring the awareness or the adoption to some things. Yeah.
And they're definitely taking kind of the gamified approach, right? I'm just like kind of wondering why they haven't just let it be open. Like they're still kind of in this like super beta, super exclusive, like not fully open for business, like kind of state. And I'm just like, it's weird. And then there's the apes, right, with their whole space that is still TBD.
It's still, right.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's that speculation side of things where people are like buying a bunch based on FOMO, and then I feel like they all just got soaked, and I feel like Sandbox is a little bit guilty of that as well, right? It's a lot of speculation.
They and now there's two sides to that, right? So on the one side, they don't have it all the way open, so you can't just go run around, which is like I wish they would. But on the other side, I can see why they do it, because they're keeping by only opening up specific games at a time. Okay, the activity it makes you want to come back. Okay, if it was wide open, I can see what people would do. They would go in, they would search all the different spots, spend 2 minutes in each world to go, that's cool, that's cool. They'd do the click thing, ting, 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 and then they'd be done and they'd never come back. Whereas at least this way, they keep their active user base, right? Steady, more consistent, because now it's like, okay, this month we have these games, bloom, bloom. Okay, and you win these rewards by playing, and then bam. Okay, now go and play these games for a whole new set of rewards. And it's like, okay, so
I can see,
it's a two-sided coin.
And I think with them, at least the land buyers seem happy though, because I think they've been paying out in sand, right, for people who have been holding on to their land, unlike the other side folks who just sold people plots of land for several ETH and have shown nothing but some cool demo videos and one or two little promo kind of events they did. No shade though, you know, I hope to see it succeed, and I love the goal. I love what they're talking about doing. I just want to see it actually existing, and I feel bad for some of my friends who might have been soaked on those investments, you know. Feeling for them a little bit, but it is what it is. I know we've passed the hour mark, and I want to respect your time. I know your 5 kids probably want some attention, so I'm curious, what are you kind of most excited about in the XR space? So what are you most excited about for 2024, and kind of looking into stuff you're working on and the technology coming out?
So to keep it real short, South by Southwest, super excited about all the artists that are coming in this year and working with us. Really, I mean, I'm just blown away at the talent that's there. And our Art Walk, Charlene's put together an amazing event, and it's going to take over the 7 cities. So that's going to be really exciting to be a part of, bringing in the optical industry into this discussion. So instead of just the tech and just the fashion and just these, we're bringing in the actual doctors and having, and here's the way I see it. If you are a hardware company, right? Say you do make glasses, you do make this stuff. If a doctor says, hey, this is the item, they put that little stamp of approval on there, right? They're like, this is the hardware that I enjoy. This is the one that I'm going to recommend to my people. This is the one that's going to sit in my office, right? I feel like that's the same as like when a dentist says, I recommend this type of dental hygiene kit, or when your physical doctor says, I recommend you take this type of medicine. Not saying take this, here's your prescription, but like, go to this over the counter, get this over the counter thing and use this. It's so having an eye doctor say, this is the thing that I recommend you use. I feel like that's going to have some real power behind it.
And do you think eye doctors are even open to endorsing VR headset or AR headsets? And is that going to be something that happens more often? Because I feel like right now it's kind of like, try to minimize how your exposure, and a lot more kind of concern as opposed to like approval. And I don't know if like a professional eye doctor is going to be like, yes, the Apple Vision Pro is the best for your eyes. Like, but maybe.
Dude, but they're going to have to because you know what's going to happen? People are going to come into their offices and they're going to say, which one of these is going to put the most stress on which one? And they're going to say things like, all of them are going to strain you. Okay. But these are the ones that we do say, if you're going to use it, because you're going to use it, these are the ones. So they're going to have to, because if you have 1,000 people come into your office and say, this is the thing I'm doing, they're going to have, so getting them in the conversation, and they can use these for their visits. So now we have eye tracking. So we're already looking into the eye anyways. So now when you have these things on, you can have those distant type things, right? So
you can actually test their eyes in the VR headset. That's wild, man. That's wild, a future.
But it's happening. It's here.
That's amazing. Let's go. Hexidized is on the case, man. And specifically for you, for Hexidized, you said South by Southwest, so you're really kind of leaning into the real world event activations, it sounds like.
Yes,
okay.
And that, so South by South, I'm all about the real world events.
Awesome.
The Metaverse, don't get me wrong, I love doing the Metaverse because that's what I'm saying. It's like tying them in together and making them not separate, but
that's what's up. Blending it all together, showing the use case, showing the power of the technology. I really loved your story about, your parents joining in the Metaverse to hear you play with your wife. And, that's what it's all about. That's so wholesome. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all. A lot of good feedback. And I'll be jumping into Nifty Island more, and I'll be keeping an eye out for that South by Southwest. So is there going to be an opportunity to basically see what you're doing at South by Southwest remotely in the Metaverse? Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, so we're going to have that. All of the AR, XR stuff should be accessible, or most of it should be accessible, remotely anywhere in the world. And we're planning on having an in real world event. So if you want to be a sponsor, by all means, shameless show. But if you want to help support that and support the artists, by all means, jump in. But we will have that broadcast into the Metaverse as well. So, and shout out Metabot Apes. If you're in Nifty Island, look out, make sure you grab your ape, because let's go.
I need to get one of those apes, I guess. But that's really exciting, man, and I'm really happy for you. I think that merger of real world events with the Metaverse is the future, and the AR and XR, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll be able to check out the South by Southwest a bit. I'll jump into the Nifty Island place. And again, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be live next week on Web3 Warriors, talking Web3 fashion and all that's happening in that space. It's going to be really exciting. And until then, we'll catch you all in the Metaverse. Take care, everybody. Peace out.